You are never going to feel ready to speak. I did not, and I still did my first lesson in Portuguese anyway. And that is the first thing people get wrong about speaking practice. They think that there is a point where enough vocabulary finally arrives and the fear goes away. It does not work that way. The real signal was never a word count. It was the point where I could read and watch shows at regular speed, and I started feeling ready to speed up the content even further. That's when I knew I had enough vocabulary. I knew how to string sentences together well enough to make sense. Not before I started speaking, but well after. The fear itself is not really about vocabulary either. It is about experience, about what you actually know to be true, rather than what you think should feel safe. Knowing you have enough words does not make the moment feel safe. If you can force yourself into uncomfortable situations early, because some people can do that, you get over that fast. If you already carry speaking anxiety, it is going to be harder. So here's the actual ladder. Every rung between never having said a word out loud and being ready for a real conversation. You actually feel first you need a few sentences that you actually feel confident making. If that's written, that's fine. Spoken if you're already there, but you do not speak until you have something to actually say, and that's just going with things in the wrong order. You need to stop being nervous about anyone specific hearing you, and that just means that you can talk to yourself, or you can repeat after a teacher alongside everyone else in a room full of students. That way nobody's singled out, and it's a lot lower friction than your own written production seen by a student, a teacher, anyone, and there's barely anything to correct. If that happens, then that builds real confidence. And if you're still not ready to speak, then try AI as a listening partner. You try speaking to it and see if it actually picks up what you're saying. If it does, that is a genuine confidence boost. If you can, then try recording a voice message instead of being on a live call. That buys you prep time, and it means you can redo it if you do not like how it came out. And at some point, you just have to start talking to other people. That is the whole ladder. Right now, I do not have the sentences for speaking in Ukrainian yet, but I have it in French, which I would say I speak, although I'm still learning it. What I actually do is I find a secluded spot and I speak with myself out loud if I can. I like to run through things I would actually want to say to, for instance, a specific teammate from Canada that I play frisbee with. If I want to ask him for something or get his help, I go through what I would say to him in my head first. And whenever I hit a word I do not know, that is the signal that it's worth looking up. Those are usually the only words worth learning on spot, because the moment you look one up, you start hearing it everywhere. Those words you those words you generally only have to look up once. I do not actually keep a voice note practice habit. The only time I ever record myself speaking is if I'm doing a real voice message to my wife. That rarely happens, but that's not really a deliberate rep. It's just real life. I am using a Ukrainian AI tutor. I probably at this point already made the video or posted the video at the moment that you're seeing this. And that AI I'm not really using for voice messages either. Is that I'm writing messages. What I'm usually doing is that I'm writing messages, I'm getting corrected on them, and the moment the corrections start dropping off, and until the corrections start dropping off, I probably won't start speaking. This is what I have at the moment with 250 words using the Ukrainian tutor AI. I got asked what I had for breakfast, and I had no idea what the Ukrainian word for protein bar was, so I looked it up. Now, if you're doing this with a teacher, then mark the word you had to look up, so you're not pretending that you already knew it. But the moment you look a word up, it becomes a word you have at least seen. That is the whole game. The more you do that, the more you understand. I'm quite sure that I wouldn't be able to just reproduce it at a moment's notice, but I at least know enough so that I am at least able to recognize the word if I see it in a context. Most people freeze because they're worried about how other people will react when they're speaking, and that's the real blocker. And there's no way around it except realizing that nobody cares nearly as much about you as you're doing. It also helps you enormously as a teacher to admit when you do not know something, because most students are terrified of showing what they do not know. So if you show them that you do not carry that fear either, that helps them more than almost anything else. Of course, that's mostly for teachers or people talking to other people learning languages. The whole thing of you studying should take 20 minutes a day. That is the floor. Anything past that is optional and should only happen if you actually want to keep going. And even then, I would suggest stopping right at the point where it's the most fun. Not because you're out of time, but because stopping there is exactly what makes you want to come back the next day. How do you know once or when you're ready to move up to the next step of the ladder? And that's when you have a conversation with yourself and you see how many words you actually have to look up. If that's very few and you're barely getting corrected anymore, if you're writing messages, for instance, those are all good signals. And the less you have to fix on your own, the closer you are to being ready for an actual speaking partner. I saw this exact pattern play out with Portuguese on Tandem years ago. I started by sending a bunch of messages and I was getting corrected. Once those corrections dropped, I started sending voice recordings instead. And once those stopped getting corrected too, I started feeling like maybe I could actually do this. And then someone on it actually pushed me for an actual call, and for some reason I said yes. And that call turned out to be the single most useful thing that happened, because somebody forced me to take the leap, and I took it. Right now, I'm actually not doing speaking practice in Ukrainian at all, like I explained, but I'm still on the rung before that, seeing whether this AI setup can actually eventually place an actual paid tutor for free is something that I'm doing, and whether that is something that I can make accessible to other people as well. I like to believe that it is going to be. I'm definitely looking forward to letting more people test it. People say that talking to yourself is not real practice, that you're just rehearsing your own mistakes without correction. That is partly true. Solo practice cannot give you genuine correction, but it does give you one kind of feedback. And it is that you notice that you do not know a word and that you have to look it up. That is real. What it cannot do is tell you when you're confidently wrong about something you thought you already had right. For that, you need a partner. And here is the part people miss. Being confidently wrong and then corrected is one of the ways a correction actually sticks the best. The more certain you felt before you got corrected, the less likely you are to need correcting on it again. Some people say that you should skip all of this and just speak from day one, and that discomfort is the whole method. That works if you're genuinely extroverted and you like pushing yourself into a challenge, but for most people, it doesn't, because it strips away the early feeling of progress, and that's what most people actually need to keep going. It is not that the advice is wrong, it is that it is built for a rare kind of person. So if you watch this whole thing and you still haven't said a single word out loud in your target language, then figure out where you actually are on this ladder and do the next step. If you're already at the top, then at least record a voice message. You don't even have to send it, just listen to it and delete it if you want. That still counts.